And then we're going to just do our thing. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I have another fabulous guest with me today. I have Michaela Soleil, who is with me as a polyamorous, same thing, poly dating and relationship coach. Welcome. I'm really glad to have you here.
Yeah, thank you, Kimberly. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here, excited to chat about all
Yes.
the good things.
All
Yeah.
the good things. I think our kind of theme today, we're going to drop into, we'll see where we go. You never know if we go sideways or around and back again, but we're going to play with communication in attunement, sorry, communication and attunement in our relationships. What does that mean? What does epic communication look like? What does attunement look like? How can we strengthen our relationships and create a container where we are all loved and we feel safe and we feel seen and held and respected, and we continue to grow and deepen together. And this can be a partnership, loving relationship, but this can also be, a business relationship or a sister or a friend. For the most part, I'm pretty sure we're going to be referring and talking to lovers and partnership, that kind of thing, relationship today, but it's all welcome. So welcome. Let's start with you, Michaela. Let's give a little bit of a rundown of who you are, who you serve, and then what brought you here.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, who I am, who I serve. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a pretty unique out there kind of being, especially these days. I'm entering my crazy witch in the woods era. So that's what
Me
I'm
too, don't
calling it
worry.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really have loved this journey of um getting to this place of really embodying the power of being able to create spaces for people that allow themselves to reconnect to their own sovereignty, to reconnect to their own sense of who I as a relational being, and how do I want to express that? How do I want to shine that in the world in my own unique, one of a kind of way? Because the people
Mm,
that I work with, their relationships and the way that they want to love and express and connect and share intimacy and eroticism and all of these beautiful things are always so different and so unique. And so I really am here, serving people that are like, wow, I don't fit into the mold. Like I don't fit
yeah.
into the boxes of what, relationship, partnership, marriage, sex, all of these things really, really look like, And so it's
Mm.
funny, I didn't I didn't choose this path. This path
Yeah, I
chose
want
me in a
I want
way.
to
And
hear that
I
story.
really,
Yeah.
I
What's
mean,
the path? How did it choose you?
I got here because I really, as I was going through my coaching training and as I was, working towards who do I want to be in this? Like, what is my soul here to tell me? And as I was really going through this process of sitting in the goop of that, the unknown of that, letting myself sit in that place, I kept on receiving this very, very clear message that was like, you're gonna help, non-monogamous people, you're gonna help polyamorous people. Like you are polyamorous, like this is who you're gonna help. You're gonna help individuals and couples. And I was like, what? I was like, no, like I want to do like sacred womb healing or like women's empowerment and like, like that those are the spaces that I felt comfortable and I felt like I'm already knowledgeable here. I can do this. And then it was just so clear. And then it became this journey of okay, well, this isn't just I have a like coaching training and then I can go off like I have a coaching training to help with relationships and sexuality, not to help with polyamory. And so I just then had to
Mm.
go on this path of, well, I need to teach myself. I know how to be polyamorous for me, but I don't know what that means for other people. So I really had to go on this journey of having a lot of conversations, reading a lot of books, working with a lot of people, getting really curious, experimenting. And now, what is it, like 3 years later or something, 3, 4 years, something like that now? Oh my gosh, I don't even know. I've developed this beautiful body of work and have seen um, how powerful it is, and what I've seen over
Mhm.
and over again is that I'm really helping people come back to that sovereignty. I'm helping them come back to secure attachment with themselves,
Mhm.
within the myriad of relating and all the things, coming back to that secure attachment, that sovereignty within themselves, and then developing the skills to then how do we relate to one another? How do we communicate? How do we attune? How do we understand our needs and wants and desires and really listen and listen to
Yeah.
listen and not just listen to respond or say something back. And so
Yeah,
it's
that's
become
a
such a
huge
core
point.
piece. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, many people, I think, yeah, listen to respond, right? They're listening. They're just like,
Hmm.
when's my next? What am I going to say to this? They're not actually listening and hearing. And that one's so good. And let's break down, I think most people know what communication word meaning means, but let's break down attunement. And then let's break down after that how we can increase our communication and why we want to. First, we'll go with why we want to. But what is
Mm.
attunement to you if we're going to break that one down first?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I think my idea of attunement has shifted, especially having a neurodivergent partner whose first language is definitely not body language. And my first language is definitely body language, right? And so attunement for us has looked a lot different than it has in other relationships, right? And so my idea of attunement now is really about this willingness to get curious, of like when you're present with somebody, when you're connected with somebody, what actually are the things that help them feel regulated and connected? And what are the things that help you feel regulated and connected?
Mm,
Because that's going to look different for everyone. And so it's really this process of asking a lot of questions and getting really
mm,
curious, you know,
mhm.
even as simple as like, you have your arms crossed. Like, what does that mean? Right? Because my
Mm,
brain says
mhm.
you're angry, you're mad, you know? And my partner, he's like, no, I'm cold. I do this when I'm cold.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, you don't need
I'm
to.
used to people
Right.
doing that when they're mad. The same with a sigh. I've done the
Exactly.
same with my partner as well. When they're just like and I'm used to that means you're in trouble. Like that meant from my mother, like there's shit coming down, like get ready.
Hmm.
And he's like, oh, I'm just, settling.
Right.
It's like asking those
Yeah.
questions. And attunement also, it feels to me also like what you were trying to describe there also could be like identifying your love languages.
Hmm.
You said, you come across a more body. So I'm
Hmm.
thinking more touch, right? And more, you feel me in there if I'm wrong there, but you're kind of identifying more of the love languages. Is it touch? Is it quality time? Words of
Hmm.
affirmation, acts of service, and what's the last one?
Hmm.
Gifts. So you're kind of
Yeah.
trying to figure out what makes you feel loved, safe,
Hmm.
secure, seen, connected, and what makes me, and then how do we meet each other if we don't speak the same language? Is that what you were referring to?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And funny enough, it's actually the opposite. Like I'm the words of affirmation
Ah,
person. My partner is
okay.
the physical touch person, 100%. And also, there's shifts in there. And I love the love languages. I love that ideology. And at the same time, I love the asking questions because I think
Yes.
there's also this kind of energy of like, let's just define what the love language is and then go from there. And it's like, it's so much more nuanced than that. It's so much
Hmm.
more contextual. It's so much more, shifting throughout different phases of life and even different phases of the year, depending on like what's going on in your stress levels and what other stuff
Yeah.
is going on in your life, So I think it needs to be this continuous open conversation, right? About like how can you connect right now? There's so
Hmm.
many different avenues, so many different possibilities of connection,
Yeah.
And so I
Let's
always
list
get
a few.
curious what those
Let's list a
threads
few
are.
off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Give some
I mean,
examples. Yeah, let's share.
yeah, actually what's coming to me is kind of some of the groups that I go to, polyamorous kind of like summer camp type things that I participate in, and I also facilitate sometimes certain parts of it. And I just remember being there, and the woman leading is like, everybody has different channels. And so she took us through, let's sit down and let's just listen to each other, right? So there's the auditory channel. Let's sit down and like hear each other just talk about your experience right now for 2 minutes and just sit there and listen, right? The auditory channel. And then we would do something like called like a toothbrush wash. So we'd then go and like energetically like wash each other, right? Like as if you're a tooth, just like go and right? Like
It's
get the
cute.
toothpaste, whatever. Like so then the energetic channel, right? Like that's another channel. And then actually the physical channel. Like can we sit in a massage train for a minute, right? And just kind of explore that. So like the physical channel, the energetic channel, the auditory channel. Um yeah, I guess also service, right? Like that would be
Mm-hmm.
another kind of love language
Mm-hmm.
type thing. Yeah, in terms
Yeah.
of connection, I'm like my brain is, if you have
Yeah.
any others.
Those are great. Yeah, for me, connection for me, when I feel connected with my partner, is when I can feel the presence. I can feel that I am being heard, seen, loved. My basic needs are being met, whether it's a touch on the shoulder or a kiss or a hug. That we're connected, we're communicating, even if we're silent, right? Even if we're just reading or both doing something, but there is a check-in. It's not a numbing out, not paying attention. Like we could be totally doing totally different things on different chairs, but at the same time, there is this touch point where you're both understood. You can check in and see, okay, is there any needs that you need met, kind of thing? Is there anything you need right now? Is there anything we need to talk about? Anything you need to hear? Asking for what I
Yeah.
need, right? That's definitely a connection thing and a communication thing as well, right? Communication is it's very, very interwoven here into
Mhm.
connection, communication, attunement. Attunement for me also is very much of an attunement of presence, an attunement of grounding,
Mhm. Mhm.
of kind of like, it kind of feels like a dance, more like an infinity loop dance here, where we're holding and
Mm.
supporting each other in various forms, energetically, emotionally, physically,
Mm.
and what are the other ways, spiritually, whatever it may be. But it's like this attunement, it's almost like this dance of two people
Mm.
learning how to hold this kind of space together and creating the space, of course, that you want to create in your relationship,
Mhm.
how you want to feel, how you want to play together, how you want to work out together, how you want to
Mhm.
eat together, how you want to sleep together. Like,
Mhm.
what is, instead of just going through the motions and allowing whatever happened to happen, have you actually figured out what you both want? How,
Mhm.
right? Getting curious, playing with your needs, playing with what works and what doesn't work for you, and finding a way to attune better also to your partner. Definitely
Mm.
communication has to be included. That's why communication and attunement
Mm.
are needed for a deep, powerful relationship where you do feel seen, where you do feel
Mm.
heard, where you do feel loved, where you feel like
Mm.
you're met and held in such a deep, profound way that, for
Mhm.
me, I can say that I've always desired, right? Like there's a need
Mhm.
there that I've always wanted and never actually found in my entire life through parenting and relationships like my own parents. So to
Mhm.
find that attunement, that communication,
Mm.
using communication as a tool to come to connection, to come to attunement, has
Mm.
been life altering. It's like,
Yeah.
holy Hannah, I've been waiting for this all my life kind of thing. Like it's like something that's like, oh yes, please.
Mhm.
Something beautiful.
Mm. Yeah, it's funny because really what's on my mind right now, and like the last thing you just said of like communication as a tool, and it absolutely is. And I also get curious, how do we learn that tool? Like do
Yeah,
we do we have that tool, right? A lot of the time our communication patterns, like growing up, our parents, our early relationships, we don't go into
yeah,
this like communicating with the sense of listening to listen. We communicate from a place of respond, of here's my opinion, here's what I feel, here's what like, here's what's going on for me. And we're so
exactly.
conditioned to do that that it really is a tool, right? To actually
Mhm.
shift and come into this space of listening to listen. And that's what I get so, so curious about and I get so excited about. So I'd love to talk about that as well. So yeah.
Yeah, listening to really understand and feel in the
Mhm.
most compassionate, loving, holding space kind of way. And that doesn't mean you put your
Mhm.
own needs aside and your own, wants and needs and things that you want aside. You're
Mhm.
just simply pushing pause almost on them. And
Mhm.
now tell me what you need and want, and let's hear it. Like, I really want to feel it and hear it and help me understand the why behind it. That always helps
Right.
me a ton. And maybe even some history around it as to why you think that way or why that came up or what
Mhm.
you experienced like that when you were younger. And then having a chance afterwards, we could have all the time in the world to share this
Mm.
and so that they can help you understand. So it's like you're sharing it back and forth. It doesn't mean you're not getting your needs met, but you're really just trying to really truly understand. And it's almost like finding a way that these puzzle pieces fit together in the most
Yeah.
coherent way. Sometimes you get a puzzle and they kind of fit together with another piece, but you can tell the picture
Mm.
doesn't match, right? And instead, we're actually finding the exact right piece to match. So it's finding your own unique puzzle in your own
Right.
relationship through
Mhm.
your attunement, through communication, through connection, through
Yeah.
learning how to really see and hear and listen to each other.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and I really want to speak to, that making that shift, from maybe habitual or unconscious or like learned patterns of communication that perhaps for most of your life haven't been an issue even, right? Especially
Mhm.
like work relationships or like whatever, like you're just out there in the world, but then you have an intimate partnership and then here you have somebody coming in to your world that is reflecting back to you all of your best qualities, all of the wonderful things about you, and also all of the worst qualities and the worst things
Mhm.
about you, right? We're seeing the full spectrum, especially the deeper and deeper that we feel safe and loved and held by somebody, the more that our, habituated patterns that aren't working are going to come to the surface because it's finally a safe enough place to be seen in that and to look at it for yourself and go, ooh, interesting. And so I really wanted to speak to really this process of communication, and I wanted to talk about it today because it was just last night that I was connecting with my partner about this, and I was like, oh my God, I gotta share this on the podcast with Kimberly today, and just the fact that we've been dating now for it'll be 3 years this Christmas, and we've been on this journey of talking about communication and how do we do that in a good way. And, I come from a background of having all these tools and I love nonviolent communication. And, I've gone to these communities that are really practicing listening to listen, and just whole communities of people that are interested in this stuff. And I come from that world. And he comes from a totally different world. He comes from the more like spiritual disclosure aliens, he's like that kind of world, that kind of guy, right? And so he comes from that place and we come together. And in his world, there's not like a need for this like nonviolent communication, all this stuff. It's like, what? You just say what you say and it's all good. And I come from this world. And so we've spent 3 years having so many conversations about how do we communicate and practicing and trying and experimenting. And that combined with, he's neurodiverse, like I mentioned, and I'm a little bit neurodiverse, but he is in a different way, right? And so our brains coming together and saying, how do we do this has been such a process to understand what that is. And I want to give so much love to that and that's okay. Right. And there's couples out there that have been together 20 years and they're just scratching the surface of learning how to communicate. Right. So if
Mhm.
you're listening and you're like, I'm on this journey of trying to communicate and it's hard sometimes,
It's hard because
so much sense.
we get mad, we get angry, we get
Mhm.
triggered, we feel like we're not being listened to. So much resentment builds, so
Right.
much frustration, so much bitterness. And what I've learned through this relationship is it's like, okay, can we, and my partner said the same, can we put our egos aside for a moment, even just for a moment,
Mhm.
right? And just talk about actually what happened and how it made you feel and how it made me feel. And then when you understand it, you're like, oh, okay. So when you
Right.
can start to actually have this really open lines of communication, sharing with little rituals, sharing in little practices of really learning
Mhm.
how to talk, not only just regular everyday talk, but also setting up little containers to practice talking, because we actually do need
Mhm.
this practice. Like you're saying, we haven't
Right.
been taught how to do this. What happens is you do have a very powerful, strong relationship where there isn't resentment,
Mhm.
where there aren't the frustrations, where there isn't the
Mhm.
bitterness, where there isn't the seething underneath, and I'll leave that for later. And then it comes out later at your partner.
Mm.
That disappears. And no shame if that's been happening in your relationships. It used to happen in my relationships
Mhm.
over and over and over until I learned how to come back and hold myself, unpack
Mhm.
different conditionings and programmings and shame and trauma
Mhm.
and all of the different things. Once you start to unpack and peel these layers of the onions off, we're able to hold ourselves in such a more grounded, balanced, compassionate, loving way for ourselves, but
Mhm.
also for the partner in front of us or partners in front of us, where we
Right.
can actually then keep those lines of communication open even when you're both struggling. And that
Right.
is the most powerful tool and most powerful thing, period, that I
Mhm.
think I've ever experienced. Because when you come to the end of it, you're like, wow, you
Mhm.
feel deeper in your relationship. You feel more connected, more in love, more heard, more seen. It feels safer to be more of your true, authentic self. So it allows you to go deeper the next time, which is like all on its own,
Mhm.
right? It really allows and creates this deep safety and deep trust in a relationship is, I think, the number one tool that we need to work on, this
Mhm.
communication, really
Right.
learning how to hear each other, how to see each other, and how to
Mhm.
understand and be compassionate about it all while still holding space for ourselves,
Mhm.
both and.
Right. Right. And I want to make the clarification here that like for the people that are listening and that like don't, aren't as well attuned like understanding of these things. When we say listening, when we say holding space, when we say listening to listen, when we say nonviolent communication, we're basically meaning the same thing. And like it
One of
all
the
is
same. Yep.
one realm. It's many different ways to say the same thing. And that I wanted to say because that was part of this realization, right? Of like 3 years of talking about this stuff with my partner. And just last week, him coming to this place where we're sitting there on the couch and all of a sudden his energy just shifts. And I'm a very energetically sensitive person and aware of myself on many different layers of existence. And I felt this shift and I felt this heart opening and I felt this like such deep soul level presence that he just kind of like settled into and connected with me from. And I felt that before, but it was like he just purposely shifted it and went there. And I was like, what just happened? He's like, I just got it. Everything that we've been talking about with this communication and holding space and listening to listen and nonviolent communication and blah blah blah. He's like, I finally just got it. And he's like, yeah, it's authentic soul connection. I was like, great, you have a new word for it, right? And so that's why I'm always encouraging people to find their own version of what it is
Mhm.
that we're talking about here, right? You can call it whatever you want. You can perceive it however you want. You can find your own avenue, find your own way. Because for my partner, it took 3 years of learning it in different ways for it to
To put
finally
it together.
click. And it was such this beautiful. And last night I was talking to him about it, and he's like, yeah, I finally get it. It's a way for our logical brains to communicate the language of the heart, for that there to
Mm.
be this connection where the heart gets to express, because our heart to heart we can connect energetically, we can say things without words, but the heart doesn't actually have a voice piece. And then so we
Mm.
use the logical mind to help give that, and the tools are actually what help us make that journey from our head into our heart, being able to speak from that place, being able to connect, to attune, to open, to see, to understand
Yeah.
from that deep place of the authentic soul connection, as he now is calling
Yeah.
it. And now I'm like, great, all I have to do is if we're a little bit off is, hey, authentic soul connection. And he'll be like, oh yeah, shift into that space. I was like, woohoo! 3
That's
years, right? And so
amazing.
I want to give so much understanding to anyone that has ever felt like, how do I do this? Why isn't this working? It does take time. And I'm a freaking relationship coach, right? Like
Yeah.
I do this for a living and it does take time. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely, because even when, a relationship coach, and this is all playing with Tantra also, I wanted to bring that in, just
Mm-hmm.
explaining the words that Michaela's been using in the last, few minutes here. Like, this is
Mm-hmm.
Tantra. This is the Tantric
Mm-hmm.
lens, the philosophy of how we get to play with Tantra in relationships, in relationship with ourselves, in relationship with our partners. And it does take time. And even, I get triggered. I got major triggered last Saturday from something. He did a little movement of sorts, and I took it right back to age 8, 9, 10 kind of thing. And I
Mm-hmm.
had to, process that. And the beautiful part is, it was really easy to process because he holds great space for it. But the really cool thing I'm noticing is stuff that really I was like, "Ah, it was no big deal." Like, I've worked on so much other trauma over my lifetime that was a big deal. These little things that were no big deal, that I was putting air quotes on, are actually starting to come to the surface now because I feel safe, because he is a safe container for me
Mm-hmm.
to share what's coming up, to, "Oh, this just
Mm-hmm.
reminded me of this." It's almost like your body knows then when it's ready to come up, and it's just another layer of the onion coming up to be held and
Mm-hmm.
processed, and it takes some time, and it's not a bad thing. These are tools. These are things that I teach my clients. We're going to go into those in a moment, but like tools and
Mm-hmm.
practices and different ways of thinking that we all need to learn. This is something that, had our parents have known and had our parents have practiced,
Mm-hmm.
we would have learned. But
Mm-hmm.
for many, many generations, there have not been, and not in all households, some households do have it, but there have not been these epic forms of deep, real listening and communication and
Mm-hmm.
understanding and compassion for all genders. And these are the tools that we get to learn now, and we get to
Mm-hmm.
practice, and we get to deepen and strengthen our powerful relationships that we have currently. And
Mm-hmm.
then we get to model for our children, whether they're babies
Mm-hmm.
or whether they are adults, they're
Mm.
still watching. And we need this. We
Yeah.
need this so that we can change this paradigm of lack of communication in
Right.
relationships, where we can connect on this really seen level that
Mm.
I think every single soul, every single heart deeply wants to be seen, to be heard, to be loved, to be understood in their true authentic self, in exactly who they
Mhm.
are, not the hidden version, not the pretend version, not the
Mhm.
version that's for everybody else, but I'm different inside, like the really true authentic version of who you are. To be held that way in relationship is like the
Mm.
best thing on this planet. I actually think that's what we're all here to do.
Mm. Yeah. And all I'm feeling while you're saying that is like, yes. And like, wow, this work too of like being willing to go on this journey of how do you find your way in this. It's also doing that, right? It's shifting the pattern. 7 generations back, 7 generations forward, right? Like you
Yeah.
you are that standpoint that's like, okay, maybe there's a different way. Let's try that different way. Let's shift and see what's happened. And I have seen that in my own family. I know we said we weren't going to talk about other relationships, but I have to mention this because it was so
Yeah.
beautiful to witness that while I was on my own journey of finding my way with this, it was during COVID times, and I ended up back home with my mom, which was
Mhm.
hecka challenging. We've never had good communication. We've always been, fighting ever since I was a kid. And then here I was learning these new tools. And then I was like, well, I'm living with you, mom. So I'm going to do my best to practice them with you. And I'm going to start practicing what I learn. And that was, so many years ago, 4 years ago, whatever. And here we are today. I have a better relationship with my mom than
Mm.
I've ever had in my life. She has a better relationship with herself, with the people in her life, because she's
Yeah.
been practicing these things too. And then to see her actually go down this path of, for a time, she decided she was going to start working with this company that teaches kids how to understand their own emotions, how to feel their own
Brilliant.
emotions and let it be okay. And because through our connection and our communication, she realized, oh, I was never able to just let you have a feeling and hear you and
Mm,
see you and let that be enough. I always made it wrong. I always like wanted to change or fix or mitigate or make it better. And I didn't
yeah.
know that it was just okay to let you feel and let you cry and let you have a tantrum and then come and give me a hug. I never knew that. And then so she went down this
Oh,
path of wanting to teach kids something new, something different, so that she could kind of change that
I
karma for
love this.
herself as well, right? Like do
Yeah.
something differently than what she did, right? And
Beautiful.
so it really does. And I got to see firsthand how it does affect our lineage, right?
Yeah.
And my mom
Beautiful.
is like the closest person to me in my lineage that's still alive. And so it's being able to see that in my lifetime has been
Yeah.
so impactful and give me such
Ah,
a reverence for these tools as well. Yeah.
very powerful. And, we're going to list off a few tools here if you're listening and you want to start to really increase, oopsies.
Sorry.
It's okay to increase communication, to increase, connection and attunement and relationship. But one of the first ones, because you've already mentioned it, is really giving permission for yourself to feel all of your emotions, you and your
Hmm.
partner. Just because
Hmm.
somebody's mad or upset doesn't mean you have to change things. You just need to witness it. Just
Hmm.
like if, oh, what's a good example? Just need to witness it.
Mm.
I'm thinking of an animal outside running across like the lawn that's not your animal. You're like, oh, okay. There goes a cat across my yard, jumps on the fence. Like you're literally just witnessing. It doesn't mean
Hmm.
that you need to change anything. If they're, crying and upset, or if they're angry or frustrated, you can just sit and go, okay, you're crying, upset, sad,
Hmm.
frustrated, and that's okay. And wait for that to
Mm.
pass, or wait for that to move a little bit to there feels like a good settling. And even then you can go, and what do you need? Do you need
Mhm.
a hug? Do you need me to just listen? Do you need to rant about your day? Do you need to go and have a heavy workout? Do you need to go for a walk? Do you need a bath? What is it you need
Mhm.
to hold you right now? And sometimes that can take a while. Some people, even myself in the beginning, was like, "What do you mean? What do I need? I just need this to go away." So no, it's shifting into, okay, I'm feeling this right now. What do I need? And sometimes you have to try a couple things. Oh, that's what I needed. But that's a really
Mm.
great tool to start to come into attunement and
Mhm.
support one another in your relationship when you're going through stuff with each other or separate stuff from outside of your relationship. What are some other
Yeah.
tools that you love to give to people who are wanting to increase their communication and connection and attunement?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, so much of the work I do comes back to starting with yourself. And, if you're not able to, right, if you're not working on the how do I attune to myself? How do I see myself? How do I just like feel into what's going on? Right? It's going to be really difficult to do that with somebody else. It's going to be really difficult to understand letting an emotion be if you've never sat and just let one of your emotions
True.
be. And so a great practice I've actually just started doing this week. I always love to change up my practices, but I really love this one of just starting the day by, doing a little yawning stretches, whatever you got to do to wake up. But then just starting with this practice of expressing out loud, I feel this, just like without needing to do anything with it, without needing to get anywhere. I feel this, I feel that, I feel happy, I feel joyous. I feel a little bit, nervous about this podcast today, right? Like I feel what I feel. And then moving into, I want, right? Like I want
Hmm.
this. I want connection. I want openness. I want to feel good in my body. And going through those kind of layers helps you get to that place of, I need. I need connection. I need to wiggle a bit. Oh, I need a good yoga practice. I
Yes.
need to have that conversation that I haven't had, right? And so even just going into those spaces with yourself is going to set you up to be able to start exploring and getting curious. How do I then express this with somebody else? How do I
Yeah.
go to somebody else and do that? So I think that's a great place to start.
I love that. I love that. And definitely, yeah, we're all at different levels of attunement. So that's perfect way to just start assessing where are you at. You can do this through
Hmm.
journaling, you can do it through talking out loud, you
Hmm.
can do it
Yeah.
through audio, voice audio, so many different things. And I want to share like a communication tool as well, because I think this one
Hmm.
is a classic. You're gonna know it,
Hmm.
right? But I think it's something that I keep coming back to with my own
Hmm.
partner, with relationships, with working with clients. The same thing is the desires, fears, and loves, right? That one is
Mhm.
just so, so powerful of giving each other's 2
Mhm.
minutes of space to simply hold space. You're not commenting, you're not sharing, you're not changing, you're not asking more questions about it. You're just simply
Mhm.
asking for 2 minutes. What do you desire? Thank
Mhm.
you. What do you desire? And you just keep going. Whenever they come to a pause, it could be in a minute, it could be in 20 seconds. Thank
Mhm.
you. What do you desire? And then switching and giving each other a turn.
Mhm.
And then the next part of what do you fear? And again, you
Mhm.
give them 2 minutes of what do you fear? And really dig deep of what are the fears. This is a practice that we just drop all the time, left, right, and center. Now I'll just be like, what fears are coming up about our move, right? Like what fears are coming up
Mm.
about this? What fears, I'll just ask
Mhm.
because, or I'll share, hey, I'm having a fear coming up. We'll just like literally dump them now. But having a container around it can be really nice to get you
Mm.
thinking in that way. So giving each other 2 minutes to what do you fear, waiting for them to
Mm.
come to a nice pause, thank you, asking again, what do you fear? 2 minutes for that. And then the last one is what do you love about me? And
Mm.
again, giving a couple more minutes to share that one because it's so powerful
Mhm.
and really does make us feel seen and heard and loved and understood.
Mhm.
And it's just a powerful, powerful communication tool to just start talking about these fears, these desires, what you love about
Mhm.
me. Most of the time, you hear things that you're like, damn, you love that about me? I had no clue. Like, right? Like in the beginning, you're like, okay. So this is a powerful practice that I recommend at least 3 times a week to play with because this
Mhm.
opens the line of communication and then we can go deeper.
Mm. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious if we want to share any more tools or
Yeah. Do you
yeah,
have another
we'll
communication tool? Go for it.
yeah, I love the fears, loves, desires. It's so juicy and I feel like it always leads to deeper intimacy and eroticism. Like it could just open up that space so lovingly and be kind of this beautiful segue into deeper spaces. And then I also think about, okay, and what happens when we're not feeling so loving, right? Because sometimes like the connection is not even available because there's this big, like you were saying, you got triggered last Saturday. I probably, had something happen at some point this in the past couple weeks, whatever. But I'm not thinking of anything right now. But what do we do when there are these moments of triggers? And so I really want to give like a very, very, very basic understanding of like how do we create a space for that? And so
Mm,
I think the most important thing, the first thing, is really just the ask. Can there be a space for this? Are you available for this? Right? Are you available to talk about this right now? Is now a good time? Right? Because sometimes we're in the middle of something and if you're triggered and you're trying to get seen, and heard, and your partner's in the middle of working or doing something else and they're not listening, that can just further create that challenge. So we really want to take the time and see is now a good time? Can we drop in? Right? So you're creating the space, you're creating the context that now is a good time. Let's be here together. And then really taking the time to connect, right? Okay, you've agreed to be here. Can we connect a little bit, right? Can we just hold hands, even if we're a little bit mad at each other, right? Even if we're a
mhm,
little bit upset, can we hold hands? Can we give each other a hug? Can we just, if touch isn't available, can we just look into each other's eyes for a minute, right? And just be here. Can we take 3 deep breaths together? That's like the simplest thing for me when I'm super activated, right? Is can we take 3 deep breaths together, right? Take that time to really connect and allow your nervous systems to regulate, to come
mhm,
to this place of, okay, maybe it is going to be all right, right? And then that's when we use those tools of listening to listen. And you can really actually, especially if you're helping a partner who is activated or triggered, you can really help them by saying things like, I'm here to listen. I'm listening to listen. I just want to understand. I want to see you. I want to hear your emotions, your needs, your feelings. I'm here for you. I'm here to listen. And that can be so soothing to a nervous system that's like, oh, I can't get my needs met. To hear that
mhm.
and to go, okay, maybe there's possibility, right? And then we drop into the actual listening space, right? Like actually listening, doing your best to really hear somebody, taking the time to try and reflect them back, right? Being able
Mm-hmm.
to hear what they're saying, use
This
their
is what I
words,
heard.
that
Yeah.
authentic soul connection, right? Like listening beyond just your logical mind, listening with your heart. I
And I
heard
want
you
to pause
say
that one
this.
there.
Yeah.
That one's
Go ahead.
important because some people are like, yeah, but why do I have to repeat it back? And this one's key because sometimes they hear you repeat it back and they're like, oh, that's what I said, but that's not what I meant. And
Right.
that is the why. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's not what I meant. Or there's a layer deeper, right? Or
Yeah.
there's 10 layers deeper and you haven't even gotten close to the thing, right? You're still on the
Yeah.
logical mind and you haven't dropped into the heart yet. And it takes time to go through those layers to get to the heart. And so that's what we're there in that space really to do. And also, you don't need to figure it all out. You don't need to
Yeah.
have, like, everyone wants the nice, happy, wrapped in a bow ending, and it may not be. It may just be a short conversation that brings up something deeper that maybe there's something else that's needed down the line. And so it doesn't have to be perfectly wrapped and perfectly complete, but you can find a place of completion. Right? You can find a place of completion if there's a way to collaborate, if there's a way to, oh, a clear need was expressed, let's help create that need, or let's just try this for now and see
Yeah.
how it works, or let's make some shift in our agreements, right? There can be this place of coming to completion, and my invitation is always come back to that place that you started, right? Go back to the hug, go back to the 3 deep breaths, go back to the eye gazing, cuddle a little bit, do something afterwards, right? After having a challenging conversation that has nothing to do with the challenging conversation, right? Like allow yourself to release needing to figure it out, needing to have it be perfect, needing to have it be completely resolved because it might not be. And that's okay, right? And it might be. It might be super
Yeah.
simple. It might take two
And
minutes and you're good
that's
and
what
great,
powerful
but you don't know.
relationships is this growth of deepening, of changing, of connecting, of learning and growing together. That is what it's meant to be. Relationships are not meant to be perfect. They're meant to
Right.
have growth together through these ruptures, through these triggers, through these things. That's what makes a really strong relationship. And every time you do it, you end up getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and you can trust more and more and more that you can get through anything, which is really powerful. So thank you
Absolutely.
for sharing. I
Yeah.
think we covered so much there.
Hmm.
And I want you to share, what do you have, going on? We're going to put your links in the show notes, but what do you have going on right now and
Hmm.
what's coming up kind of into the new year
Hmm.
for people?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm kind of in a slower, slower, more soupy winter place right now. But I have my podcast, so that's a great place. The Sovereign Heart podcast. You can look me up on Spotify or other listening heart problem, other listening
Podcast.
platforms, not listening problems. Jesus. Yeah, so you can find me there. Yeah, check me out on Instagram or Facebook, and those links will be down there as well. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I love that. Thank you for sharing. We'll put those links down there.
Hmm.
And yeah, for the new year, I do have 2 spots open for couples or singles who want to deepen into sexuality, into relationship and communication and connection tools, Tantra, whether that's for solo or couple, it doesn't matter. I have 2 spots open for that, for one-on-one or one-on-two, if we're going to call it one-on-two. And then the rest is, and we'll drop it in the show notes as well, is there is a link now. I made a what are we going to call it? A place where you can get on the list to receive information about the new retreats that are coming in person for me next year. We'll be going to be offering retreats up in Northern Ontario at Phoenix Rising Retreats, which is just being kind of launched right now. It's kind of a branch off of Get Your Sexy Back, where my partner and I are going to be teaching and holding space for other couples to learn how to connect, to deepen their communication tools, to really come home to themselves, to get out in nature and get out on the water and really, integrate that in a really somatic way. So that's going to be really powerful. That is the Phoenix Rising Retreats link in the show notes. You won't get any information right away. You're just going to get on the list to get information as soon as the information comes out. It's like a pre-list of a pre-list, just kind of so that you're on the mailing list ultimately when we do start sending emails for when those first events start coming out in 2025. So super excited for that. I feel like there's a deep calling in me for in-person work. I love working with people around the world. Zoom and everything else has made that so amazing to work with people from around the world in many different time zones. And I also have a deep yearning for that in-person work. So that is what I'm in the middle of birthing and creating for the last year and a bit. So super exciting. It's almost here, and can't wait to share more. So, and I'm pretty sure, Michaela, you also offer complimentary discovery calls if people want to learn more
Absolutely.
about your work. Cool. And we'll have those links in the show notes as well. I do as well. So if you're like, hey, I don't know if I want the Jade Egg or your membership or private coaching or a retreat, hop on a free call. We'll discuss. We'll see what it is you're looking for, and I can point you in the right direction and go from there. So lots of opportunities coming up. But this is the place to be. This communication, connection, attunement in relationships is so powerful and so healing all on its own. So thank you so much, Michaela, for sharing all these tips and stories and shares of why we want to do this and all the different ways we can do it. It is, it really, really lives in my heart, and it's just been very healing. I can't speak to how healing it has been to practice this work in my current relationship and really deepen that. It's been beautiful. So
Yeah, thank you, Kimberly. Thank you so much for having me, and being able to talk about all of these topics is just so near and dear to my heart as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
thank you.
Yeah,
Till next time, everyone.
thank you.